Hey guys, and welcome to my channel ESP. I'm Daniela, and today I will be talking to you guys about how to ace scholarship interviews. Now, from my personal experience, I have been a finalist in 3 scholarships, and of those 3, I was awarded 2 of those scholarships. So I guess that goes to say that I have about a 66% accuracy rate about my tips as far as what you should be doing when you're going in for a scholarship interview. So with that being said, let's get started. So the first tip, attire, your clothing, what you're looking like, what your makeup is looking like. Typically, for these kinds of interviews, they're looking for people who look like they've came in to do business. Meaning that guys are expected to wear a nice suit and young ladies are expected to wear a dress suit or something along those lines. Also, have your hair pulled back. You don't want it to be a distraction during your interview. Okay, so for the second tip is that when I go in for scholarship interviews, I tend to think of it as the show Shark Tank. And I think of it this way because you are literally trying to convince these people, these judges, as to why they should give their money to finance your education. Now with this, the tricky thing is that you don't want to sell yourself too short or too high, or even in the middle. Rather, you want to be in the upper middle. If you sell yourself too low, then they'll think you're not of quality. If you sell yourself too high, they'll think, oh, you already have everything together. And if you're right in the middle, then that means that someone can easily take your spot and ultimately you will not be awarded that scholarship. So the setting as far as scholarship interviews, typically they are set in a conference room. There's going to be a long table, people to your left, people to your right, and someone directly in front of you. And so when you first walk into the interview, it's going to feel intimidating and stiff. And with every interview that I've been in, I've always noticed that there's always that one individual or maybe 2 judges who set themselves apart from the other judges. Like they're giving you the most eye contact, they're asking the most questions, they're engaging the most in the conversation. You want to pay most of your attention to those judges. However, you also want to share your attention to the other judges so that they won't feel left out and that everyone can be included in on the conversation. Because you see, you got to understand that with these scholarship interviews, they've already assessed and graded your general information that led you up to being considered as a finalist. So the interview is basically your final chance to get those last brownie points that set you apart from other applicants so that you can be awarded that scholarship. Okay, so that leads me to my next point, eye contact. Eye contact is so important. You see, when you are being asked a certain question, you want to look them directly in the eye. You don't want your eyes to wander about. You need to either look that person who asked you the question directly in the eye, or preferably get them all involved and make eye contact with everyone so that they all feel like they are a part of the conversation. Also, look for signs of the judges not making eye contact with you. With every scholarship interview that I've been in, there's always about 2, maybe 3 judges who are not really making eye contact. For the most part, their heads are down, looking at the paperwork before them. You want to spend extra attention with those certain judges because once that certain judge has finished grading, all the judges average their scores out for you and compare it to the other finalists for that scholarship. That then leads me to my next point. Humor. Humor them, make them laugh, make them involved in the conversation. By using humor, that not only makes you more comfortable, but also the judges more comfortable. And ultimately, the setting of the whole interview will feel more relaxed and less stressful. And of course, if you are able to humor them, the judges are more likely to make more eye contact, engage in the conversation more, ask more questions, and ultimately you as a person answering those questions, your answers will sound more relaxed and less rehearsed. Relatability. You want to relate to the judges. Now, before going in for an interview, you should already have a general idea of what the scholarship committee's values are and possibly even their demographic background. For instance, if you are being interviewed by a fraternity, then expect an all-male population. Or if you're being interviewed by a sorority, then expect an all-female population. Because you see, you may come into an interview where the judges are the same background or same gender as you, or you may come into an interview where they are a different background from you and a different gender from you. Now, Don't let either setting intimidate you. You see, if they are willing to interview you in the first place, then you gotta think optimistically. You gotta think of these people as being very fair, very humble, and very open-minded. Now, if you are not quite sure of the demographics or the overall values that that organization may or may not possess, then you can do some research. For instance, if that organization has an online website, then you probably should go ahead and check up on that. This gives you extra time beforehand to prepare yourself for possible questions that they may ask you and how you will answer those questions so to cater towards them. By doing this, you will have more of a competitive edge against other scholarship applicants. The next tip is to have one or multiple trump cards. This is what will help you stand out from other scholarship applicants. Now, for me personally, I have 2 trump cards. Sometimes I use them both within the same interview, or sometimes I just use one. It all depends on my evaluation of the values that that scholarship committee may or may not possess. Now, as far as your trump card, it doesn't have to necessarily be something that is merit-based, meaning you don't have to be valedictorian, got perfect scores on SAT, ACT, you're going to some Ivy League, or you're majoring in some very complicated STEM-related field. For those of us who tend to be more average than others, your trump card can be something as simple as your humor and your relatability. It can also be a certain talent you possess, or a certain award, honor, or competition that you participated in. It all depends on who you are as a person. And once you figure it out, utilize that within your interview. Okay, so I made a short list of the typical questions that I have been asked in literally every single interview. And some of these questions include, why did you apply for this scholarship? Do you know anything about our organization or who the scholarship was named after? How much money have you received thus far from financial aid and outside scholarships and grants? What do you plan on doing with your major of interest? Are there any other personal circumstances that we should take under consideration? And the last question, what are some of your interests and hobbies? Now, with the first question, which was, why did you apply for the scholarship? The last thing you want to say is, college is expensive and I need money. So the second question, do you know anything about our organization or who the scholarship is named after? That leads me back to what I said earlier on in the video. Make sure that you have already done a little bit of research about what the organization is about, because a lot of times with these scholarship interviews, that question about what the organization is about or who the scholarship was named after, a lot of people leave that question blank. So you want to set yourself apart from the other scholarship applicants who left that question blank, and you'll be one of few, if not the only one, who actually answered that properly. So the next question, how much money have you received thus far from financial aid, outside scholarships, and other grants, etc.? Now, for this question, you don't want to sound like you've gotten nothing, and you don't want to sound like you got too much. You want to be right in the middle. And even if you are someone who has already received a lot of money and scholarships, grants, and you're trying to figure out how do I answer this without them thinking that I already have everything together, try to maneuver your answer around and blur the lines. So the next question, what do you plan on doing with your major of interest? If you are someone who is applying for scholarships and you still have yet to know what your major is going to be, then that's completely fine. Just go ahead and make something up. You don't want to leave any questions unanswered, because that's points taken off from your overall grade of the interview. Okay, the next question is, are there any personal circumstances that we should take under consideration with awarding scholarships, etc.? Now, with this question, this is your opportunity to give out extra information that you previously couldn't really address within your FAFSA or your scholarship application. For instance, if you have someone within your immediate household who perhaps is imprisoned or they're very sickly, you probably, if you feel comfortable enough, go ahead and tell them that. Now for the final question, which is, what are some of your interests and hobbies? Now this is a question that really opens up the floor for more discussion. Like what I said before coming in for a scholarship interview, you should already have a general idea of the values, of the demographics of the scholarship committee, those judging you. So when you're mentioning your interests and hobbies, you do not want to just list them out like I do this, and that. Instead of just listing them out, you should only mention the ones that you think that they would be interested in knowing more about. That's all that I have for today's video as far as scholarship interviews. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and of course share this video with others who may be going in for their interview and they're not quite sure on how to approach the situation. I hope that this video has been very informative and helpful to you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week. Bye!